Hi, my name is Kelvin White and welcome to Ultimate Tropicals. So in this video we're going to take a look into the soil mixture that will ensure that our anthuriums and our philodendrons are absolutely free draining, but at the same time retain enough moisture for them to be able to thrive and survive. Now if you've watched previous videos, we've been following the journey of our plants from Indonesia. They've been imported over to the UK, so we took a look at that journey and how that might affect them. Then we did the unboxing and we took a look at the condition of the plants. We then soaked them in a solution of distilled water and Super Thrive for a period of 3 days. In actual fact, it was 2.5 days because they'd been in transit for 10 days. Then we potted them up into 100% pure perlite for 7 days, just to make sure that the roots could recover from the cleansing process before they were exported. And now we're at the stage where that 7 days has been completed, and we're once again going to check the roots now, because invariably there will be some root rot, and we're going to strip that out, make sure we got clean healthy roots. All those plants that have got nice roots are going to be potted up into this mixture, and any that we feel are not quite strong enough yet will remain in the perlite for a longer period of time until they are strong enough to be potted up in the soil. So without further ado, I'll just take you through the 5 ingredients that we use. So the first one is perlite. I mean, perlite doesn't really need a great deal of explanation. It is the volcanic rock substance, extremely free draining, and we're going to use 30% perlite mix. Now the other ingredient we're going to use is orchid bark. So this is the orchid bark that I tend to go with. The reason I like this is it's actually quite chunky. I mean, you can get it on Amazon, you get it on eBay, probably get it in your local garden centre. We're going to use 30% of this as well. So this and the perlite is going to provide 60%, so well over half, which will be very, very free draining. But of course, the advantage of orchid bark, it will let the oxygen weave in and out of the roots, as well as aiding the drainage. Now the next thing up is a huge bag here, and that's cocoa coir, if you can see it. I say I do use a lot of this stuff, so I tend to buy it in huge bags, but this is cocoa coir. And if I bring this one, you can have a better look at it there, and it is so light and airy. But as well as being extremely free draining, it does retain the moisture to enable the plant to take moisture when it needs it. Okay, so the next one up is activated charcoal, and that's horticultural activated charcoal. If I show you some of that in here, you can see that it's extremely chunky mix. Now you can buy this very fine, but my advice would be to get it as chunky as possible, so there's some real big lumps in here. It will ensure that you're getting plenty of air into the roots. And of course, the other thing activated charcoal will do, it will filter out any toxins that are within the soil. So again, an extremely beneficial mix, and we're going to use 10% of that. Finally, we're going to use some natural fertilizer, which is worm castings. And again, these are the ones I tend to go with. That's going to go in the mix as well, and that will provide that natural fertilizer. And we're going to use 10% of this. So just a quick recap then, we're going to go with 30% perlite, 30% orchid bark, chunky orchid bark. We're going to go with 20% pure coir mix. We're going to go with 10% activated charcoal, again chunky if you can get it. And we're going to go with 10% worm castings for the natural fertilizer. So that'll make up our 100% of our mix. If I can show you the mix in here, I'm not sure how well you'll be able to see that, but it is an extremely light mix, and of course it drains really, really quickly. Okay, so what we're going to do then is get a couple of plants. I mean, I've got like 30 odd to do, so again, I'm not going to record all of them. I'll just pick out a couple of them for an example. We'll take them out of the perlite, and we'll have a look and see the condition of the roots and make a decision whether we're actually going to pot them up in this, or whether they're going to stay in the perlite for a little bit longer. Okay, so first one up will be Crystalline. Now, as I've said, it's been sitting in this perlite mix for 7 days now since we imported them. So we're going to shake that out, just take a look at them and see what sort of condition they're in. Okay, so we're just going to shake them off a little bit, get the perlite off. And if I hold that up there so you can see it, the roots are actually in pretty good condition, and you actually see there's lots of new white ones starting to grow. So very strong root ball. We're just going to have a look at any of this are a bit straggly, any black bits or any bits that look a bit soft. We're just going to pull those off. You know, anything that, as I say, anything that looks black or rotting, just pull them off, because it'll only cause issues further down the line. That's it. And then if the rest of them look okay, as I say, if they've been in perlite for 7 days, you should expect to see some new growth, and there seems to be quite a lot on this one. So a good healthy plant and clearly ready to go into its mixture now. So if you saw the last video, we're going to go with these orchid pots. Absolutely love these pots. Obviously they're clear, that will allow the light to come into the roots. They've got superb drainage. They've got air vents all the way around the outside, once again to let the air in into a drainage. And the other real key feature is this little ridge on the bottom that will ensure they sit above any lying water if you have them in a tray. So it's got quite a good root system, this one, so we're going to go about a third with potting mixture. And then we're just going to gradually fill them up. We can give them a little shake, but of course you don't need to pack this stuff down too tight, because the whole idea is that we will have air cavities within the pot, and that's absolutely fine. And of course this all comes back to the fact that certainly in the case of Anthurium, you know, most of them are epiphytes and they grow up trees, so they will get an absolute soaking several times a day probably. But the key is that the water will hit them and then it will run pretty much straight off of them. So although they do get damp, they don't sit in water, and the water will just simply run off the tree and down to the ground. And even the terrestrial, like philodendrons, like Teleeye, gloriosum, pastizanum, although they tend to be crawlers and spreaders on the ground, they still need fast draining, because if you imagine the rainforest floor is made up of leaf litter, fibers, and extremely light soil, so it's very rare that anything's going to be sitting in water. So I'm going to pack that down. It's quite loose, it's not really tight, just enough to give the plant a bit of structure. And as you can probably see now, the mixture that will be there. You can already see the roots there, they're exposed to the light. Okay, so that's our Crystalline. He's ready now. He'll now be stored inside of the greenhouse, and he'll stay there until the 2 months have completed. Now in that time, he will produce UK leaves, the roots will get stronger and stronger, and then he'll be ready for resale once that minimum period of 2 months has been completed. I really don't like letting them out until 2 months, because you never quite know what issues you're going to get with them, especially in the first month. And I generally go with the same size pot. Now again, if I'm potting up something a bit smaller, they've had enough root disturbance as it is. They've had the journey, they've had the root cleansing, they've had the perlite for a week. Once they go in here now, I really don't want to be messing with them again. They're going to stay in here now, and they'll be fine. So when they're resold, they're going as a very established plant with an established root bowl with a minimum of disturbance. Okay, so we're going to go with something a bit different this time. This is a dark mamma, so it's quite a small plant. Same thing, it's been in a perlite now for 7 days, so we'll have a look and see how that's fared. Once again, we're just going to give it a little shake off there, get the perlite off. Now again, you can see very healthy root ball, no signs of rot. Just give it a little tug just to make sure, but that's extremely healthy, and that's certainly ready to go into its pot now and start that acclimation process. Okay, so we're going to go about half a pot this time. Obviously it's a smaller plant. Quite key now when we're potting up as well, we make sure that we don't cover any trunk. It doesn't really matter too much in perlite, but when you're putting it into a soil mix now, we want to make sure that any trunk is above the soil level. It's just the roots that are going down in. Okay, so that's dark mamma. And again, if you look at the the soil mix, you can see very, very light, very, very airy, lots of opportunities for air to circulate around the roots. And that one is now ready for its 2 months acclimation. Okay, so here we've got another ace of spades. Now, this is a good example because in this case, you can see actually there's a bit of growth there, which is good, but it's really got too much in the way of roots, and I don't think that's enough root to be putting it into soil just now. Now, it is starting to grow and there is some nice new growth in the last week, but I think that one is going to stay in the perlite for just a little bit longer. We'll give it another week or so just to encourage these roots to come on a little bit more before we actually put it into the soil. So that one's going to go back into its perlite mix. You know, when you're doing this, don't be fooled by growth. So you can actually see there is new leaves and new growth coming, but that doesn't mean it's got established roots. So you can't always go by the leaves. The roots are the important thing. So if it's got a good solid root system, then the leaves will certainly follow on with that. So as I say, that one ace of spades, he's going to remain in the perlite for another couple of weeks. Until he sort of recovers a little bit longer. Okay, so I'm just going to do one more then. So we've got a bit of Teleeye. We'll just have a look at that one. Again, just giving it a little bit of a shake off. So not a bad root structure. Just a little tug, just to make sure if there's anything there that is a bit soft and rotting, it will come off. But generally it's looking okay. And again, that's going to go into its pot. Got one of these in my home collection, Teleeye. It's about 5 times the size of this. And I've just recently done a repot. I only went up a pot size about an inch or so. And literally within 2 weeks, the roots are out the bottom, not out the bottom, but into the new soil that I potted up. So they just absolutely love this mixture, and they love these clear pots as well. Okay, so that's a bit of Teleeye. And if you've picked up previous videos, the thing I was keen to stress, that each plant is labelled, so in this case Teleeye, and it's an E2, I believe, E2. So the E2 is the reference number. So this plant will be referenced from the very beginning when it first comes into us, right up till it goes onto the website for sale. So when you actually visit the website and you look at the plants that are there for sale, if you look at the reference, like in this case E2, that is the exact plant that you will be purchasing. So we'll have an up-to-date photo on it, you know, when it's ready to go, so you know what you're looking at is the exact plant that you're going to get. It's not a case of showing you an image of one plant and sending you something else. You will get the actual plant that's, you know, the reference number relates to. Okay, so there's a few examples there I've been able to cover. So I'm going to stop recording at this point, and I'll work my way through, get them all potted up as they start that acclimation period. Okay, so here are all the plants that we've just been potting up. And they'll stay in here now for a minimum of 2 months to establish their roots further, to make sure that they produce UK leaves. And only after that 2-month period will we then add them to the website and make them available for sale. Okay guys, so hopefully that was useful, and I'll come back at various times and we'll keep an eye on their progress. Okay, bye for now. Thanks for listening.